Mm. Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to the Phil Rice YouTube channel, Hermetics Hangout session here at the, already said it, the Phil Rice YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining us here. I've got another wonderful guest with us today, and we're going to be tending to focus on the topic of initiation into Hermetics by Franz Bardon and, how to approach it as well. But before I bring the guest on, I'm just going to run through a few things. So first of all, welcome everybody. It's great to see you all. If you are watching this after the live, you throw your comments underneath there and, share any wisdom or any points of interest that you find in the from the conversation we're about to have. And please, if you've got a question during the stream, enter it into the live chat, and we will get to the questions closer towards the end of the session. And I have this particular guest for about 60 minutes today, so we'll probably look at questions about half an hour at the half an hour mark. And of course, you can check out the description below in YouTube here to find out how you can connect and support the guests and this channel, so that you can find them and seek out their guidance and their service offerings. And of course, please like, subscribe, and share to spread the love. It helps the channel grow and means that we can reach more people and help all you guys out. And and if you are curious, hang on, that one there. Not too much information there. Down the bottom there is just a way, a range of ways you can connect with me. I have a bunch of sort of social medias there, including TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Odyssey, YouTube, Telegram. But my number one is Substack. And, that's a good place to go if you like this channel and want to keep in touch, because we can connect directly via email. And that's a very powerful, and it's pretty OG as well, the old email, isn't it? But, that's a pretty safe bet. Fluctuations in how YouTube treats its creators and its interactivity with its consumers, and that is it's always a bit questionable. So I appreciate those of you that have signed up through Substack. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I'm going to get straight into it now, and I'm going to bring in our wonderful guest today, the one, the only, the very cool, and probably one of the, I would like to say, one of the nicest guys in the Bardon / spiritual / meditation community. And I love his videos, and I love his general composure and style of sharing. He's very open-hearted and just really great and easy to listen to. So I'd love to bring on the one and only Mr. Clint Sabom. Hello, Clint. Welcome, sir.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. An honor to be here.
Well, I have to say, the honor and the pleasure is all mine. I feel, I'm just going to say that. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while. And, I've had you, we've had you on the Bardon 2 or 3 times. And, there's plenty of clips of you speaking and sharing, and you've got a wonderful YouTube channel, and you're also coaching and teaching, and so you're a very active, proactive member in this development community. And so, yeah, I definitely wanted to have you on one-to-one, and we can have a chat about a bunch of stuff. And you mentioned to me just before we went live that you're really keen on doing some audience interaction, which is what we're all about. So I'm just going to say to the crowd again, please, guys, enter your questions into the chat and we will get to them. But Clint, my goodness, you have got this absolutely wonderful website that you've set up here. Would you like to tell us a bit about what people can find on here?
Oh, yeah. They can find links to my YouTube channel, my podcast, my online courses, and they can contact me through that form, and it goes directly to my email. So it's a real easy way to get in touch with me, just at the top of the page and contact form. And I think below the spiritual coach over there to the, get in touch right there. But and then it's got a link to all my stuff, and can just kind of take what you want, the courses, YouTube or podcast. And If you want individual coaching or you want group sessions, just contact me through the form at the top of the page and we can set it up. So yeah, I do individual coaching for $75 an hour and online courses. I mean, group sessions are only $25 per person. So very cheap. I try to make this very affordable. I'd rather just say the prices up front because people think of coaches that are going to be spending hundreds of dollars. No, not me. You know, I do one-on-one sessions for $75 and group sessions for $25. And the group sessions are basically transmissions, a 30-minute transmission of the Akasha and God, the energy of God, and the Akasha just directly transmitted into your being over Zoom, and it's highly effective. I get great feedback that it really helps people. And then we have 30 minutes of discussion with other Bardon practitioners. So that's my deal. That's my business. And yeah, love to hear from all y'all or take one of the classes. Yep.
Wonderful. Yeah. So you've pretty much got a full spread of offerings there. And I think that the group instructional method is, I think some barriers have been broken down about things like transmission as well. Like, you know, I came across this with Reiki as well. Like I generally had a bit of a weird issue about this idea of attunement, but, you know, after learning to understand and going through practices and that, it's actually a very viable way to sort of expedient your progress is by working with a teacher who has connected with these flavors or frequencies of energies. And because we're dealing outside of time and space, you know, this is, because I've sat in on a couple of sessions with Bob from 60 Skills on his, because he does them as well. And I have to say, look, you can't knock it till you tried it, as the old saying goes. But this website's really beautiful, and I know it's quite a recent addition. But you know, the other thing that too I don't think people realize is that you've got a blog as well, and you've got a book, and so you've got YouTube, blog, book, services. You've got courses here, and I think you've got courses on Perseus as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. On Perseus Arcane Academy. Yeah, that's where all my classes are actually.
Oh, okay. So if I go here and then I click on the thing, it'll take me to Perseus. Okay, cool as. Oh, well, that's great. And of course, you've got this absolutely wonderful. Oh, hang on, it's not changing. That's strange. Hang on, I'll bring this up again. So, where are we? Okay. Services, Clint Sabom. Window. Oh, that's why I wouldn't do it. Okay, here we go. So now you've also got a very, you've got a huge amount of content on. You've got over 100 videos. You've got, I actually listened to that AI conversation you had with Tibor. That was fascinating, man. I really encourage people to check that out. Like it's, yeah, I just say, like, even if you like, this seems a bit left of center, considering the general sort of topical material that your videos orbit, it's definitely worth checking out. And, you know, you're very generous and open-hearted with your sharing of experiences too. And I think this kind of leads into how I would like to start off the conversation is that, you know, obviously in Initiation into Hermetics, it is mentioned that, you know, there's this thing called the Pillar of Silence. And obviously people like ourselves who are on YouTube, and, you know, my name is Phil Rice. I am operating as myself, and that is a layer of exposure of my being that I'm putting out there. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this may be somewhat detrimental to my progress, but I can't help but feel naturally drawn to wanting to teach and share content. And I'm assuming that maybe there's been teachers in the past throughout history that have, like, you know, had to sort of weigh that up and balance that. And I'd just like to hear your comments on the idea of sort of like, you know, sharing, because you know, you're obviously public as well. And so do you feel that there's a, I don't know, I'm struggling to find the words for it, but just talking about being an open teacher and sharer of these, they're quite esoteric topics here.
Yeah. I mean, at first I was real like hesitant about it, but like I did videos early on about Bardon like many years ago, and it was like I hadn't given much thought to that pillar of silence. And so when it came around time, like about 2 years ago, when I started doing like regular videos about Bardon, like that was something that I was just kind of like, well, it's too late. I already blew it. So I just went forward with doing more videos about Bardon. And I think if it's the spirit of helping people and the spirit of divine providence and the fact that this is challenging material, I think it's really fine. I will admit I still have some doubts about that. I have some doubts about all of that, and but I just do it anyway. I've been doing it, so I don't look back, and I just feel like I'm doing something in the spirit of helping people, and yeah, so that's basically the thing. Yep.
Yeah, no, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, because you have been active for a while now. And so, people who are considering, starting a channel, or, publicizing themselves as teachers or as even content sharers, this is something to consider, because it is pointed out in various materials about maintaining a sense of secrecy. And personally, I just love talking about this stuff. And, I guess I'll just have to take my licks if they come around. But,
Can I circle back something real quick?
so absolutely.
Oh, okay. You were mentioning my book. My book was written in 2017, and it's been out there for a while, and it's about 6 months I spent living in a silent monastery. And so that was kind of my introduction to vacancy of mind in many ways. So I just wanted to make that clear. It's an older book. It's been out for a long time. So that's all. But as far as the preparation for Great Light, recollections of a Christian mystic. And so that was about 6 months I spent living in a silent monastery. And the monastery was very good for me. It was a very helpful process to go through that. Yeah. So, but let's get back to the pillar of silence. I do think that for some people, the pillar of silence is important, because most people, outside of people that haven't heard of the book, that don't already have questions about it, because most of my audience is people that basically have already looked at the book and already know it, and then they find me through YouTube or the podcast. But I do think you've got to be careful about who you tell, because I think basically who you tell basically about the book definitely means something, or who you tell about the book, meaning Initiation into Hermetics, who you tell about that in your magical work, basically, you need to be careful with that. You really do, because otherwise you're going to get a lot of invalidation. You're going to get some people really concerned. You may get some judgmental people. So I'm real careful who I tell. To be honest, I even tell my own, not my wife. My wife has watched my videos and listens to my podcasts. But to my parents, I've told them not to look at my YouTube videos, I've kept it silent, and I keep it silent through people day to day, even, in my life. I don't tell a lot of people outside of like the community and me putting the videos and podcasts out there. I don't tell people this. I don't tell people I come across this. I can say I'm a spiritual coach and leave it at that, but I don't tell them about Franz Bardon initiation into Hermetics magic. No. So in a sense, I kind of keep the pillar of silence. It's very limited who I'm sharing it with. And I'm usually sharing it with people who are already familiar with it. So that is basically how I approach it. So people that have read the book and are curious about going forward, yeah, be careful who you tell. Keep it guarded. Stoke the silence. If you work all 10 steps, want to become a teacher, sure, make YouTube videos like I do, make podcasts, but otherwise, like if you're just a student going through the steps, yeah, be careful, because this is a very small niche and it's a very strange thing for most people. And it's even something a whole lot of people would say is kind of impossible or is BS in some way, or they would think you're crazy. So you've got to be careful about who you tell. I mean, you can even meet other spiritual people that this wouldn't be a good idea to tell to, You've got to really use discernment who you tell this to. Otherwise, it's going to if you're expecting validation from telling this to people, I would hesitate about that, So, yeah, I do think it is important. You've got to use discernment. And so, again, the reason I share is to help people, but really I'm helping people that have already heard of the book, So
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily telling people that haven't heard of the book about the book. I'm not outside there promoting initiation into Hermetics to people, So, yeah. So in a sense, I do keep the pillar of silence, I guess is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, and wonderfully put. I think, pardon me, especially in the early stages of, say, like when I first started meditating, and that kicked the door open, and I started having interesting experiences. I'll just put it like that. And a pretty basic meditation practice too. Like I wasn't doing anything what you might call magical or spiritual. I was just sitting there looking at my thoughts. But when I started having experiences, there was a part of me that just wanted to go and tell everybody, just like when I started doing healing work and people started getting incredible outcomes straight out of the gate. I wanted to go and tell everybody. And then it didn't seem to go anywhere. And then all you get are these weird looks, and you'd think people would be interested or that, but generally if they don't have an existing interest or a frame of reference, you're better off holding that in, because you get this feedback that can end up being an unhelpful noise, because you see their body language come forward, or they're not interested or that. And I think for myself, over time I've started to sort of recede in a little bit and being a little bit more conscious about who I have open conversation with, because I think the topic of Hermetics, if you bring that up, and for example in various spiritual type arenas, a lot of people will go straight for the Golden Dawn, and there's a lot of, let's just say, stigma around that, and that can be quite unhelpful too. And as soon as you get thrown into that, because people just throw you into a category, tar you with that brush kind of thing, whatever it is. And I'm really glad that we talked about this, because if you're out there and you're doing this work and you're having experiences, or you just want to talk about it, just be conscious of the fact that most people probably won't understand. And if you're looking for validation in that, you might end up becoming disappointed about it. And the last thing you want is have the wind taken out of your sails while you're trying to get, practice traction and momentum with your practice. You just want to be energized as much as you can. So that's what I've found. So thank you for that. Yeah, and I can see it in the chat too. People are saying the same thing. They've kind of pulled in a bit too. So now, Clint, there is a discussion in the community that I'd love to get your feedback on, and that is in regards to a what is, there's a way to approach this material. And on one hand, we've got people learn things in different ways. Some people are visual learners. Some people are, touch learners, kinesthetic, whatever. Some people like to have things explained to them. They like image-based things. But, the book is the Initiation to Hermetics. It's like, it's on tracks pretty much. It says, do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. And in my time working with children and older students and that too, I found that I've used that approach in a different sense for teaching music, and it's been great for some people, but it hasn't been so successful for others. And my understanding from my time as a teacher and a business owner has been, if whatever it is that I've been working with, I want the people who come to me to have success with what they do. And, and I also understand that if they're not getting some regular kind of nourishment from some type of success, they may, leave the material behind, and somewhat unnecessarily. So I would love to hear what you've got to say on, approaching this work and setting yourself up to be successful and, giving yourself the best shot at, continuation as well.
Well, I think the main thing is to enjoy the process. A lot of this gets real overwhelming for people. And Bardon writes in this very dry tone. I mean, obviously, I'm reading it in translation, but it's written very dry and minimalistically. So it's you've got to make it fun. You've got to make these exercises a fun thing to do, and something fun that you basically want to do, and basically enjoy the ride. Like, I took 7 years to work all through 10 steps. And I say that because what that means is I wasn't in a hurry. I wasn't in a hurry to check off boxes and just get it done, basically. I was enjoying the process of going through it all. The magic was fun, and that's the main thing I would impress on anyone starting this. Make it something fun, make it something rewarding. Don't make it just this grinding task that you have to finish. Make it into something fun. And I actually think it's okay to read the introduction and theory section, know all the different concepts, read through all 10 steps before even starting it. Most people can't resist doing that. They do it anyway. And I think that's totally fine, because I think there's a process of reading through the steps that actually you almost end up doing some of them a little bit in your mind as you're reading it. And so the book itself has power. The book itself is magically charged. You can just hold the book. I could just hold the book and feel the power in the book. And I also don't think you have to be a purist. I'm not a Bardon purist. And I know some teachers are, and I'm not saying they're wrong for that. I mean, everybody has their own approach. That's fine. But I'm not a Bardon purist. I think you can move forward. I like to keep people moving through the steps. I don't like them to get stuck on one thing for 2 years. I don't like that. I want them to get, I want people to get to the poor breathing of the elements as quickly as possible and get to that part, and that begins in step 3, I believe. And so if you get to that part as early as possible, you can basically expect that to be a fun process. And that was a fun process for me. And so I spent 2 years just working with the elements, doing pore breathing. And that was very helpful. And you also could, and I'll say this from my own experience, but I've heard it from clients too all the time. You can end up having these higher level of experiences before you actually get into that step when you're working through the steps. Like for me, I astral traveled before I ever got to the section of astral traveling in Bardon, just because it happened. I opened up my third eye and started having clairvoyant abilities before I got to that part in Bardon where he deals with that. And that basically can happen to people. I mean, people do write me and say they've had the same thing, kind of thing happen. And then the people that come to my energetic transmission sessions that say, oh, that just felt like fire, or that felt like warm heat, that felt like a nice warm bath that just soaked me. And I will say, that's clairsentience. That's considered a psychic ability to feel energy, clairsentient. So if you could feel the transmission, give yourself some credit already. That's clairsentience right there. That doesn't come until later in the steps, but you have it now, and that's a great thing. So, there's ways to go about this that can be achieved. And a lot of people get hung up on the visualization exercises. And, I like to explain to people too what each thing is for, and the visualization exercises are just so in my opinion, this is just me. I mean, I'm talking only for myself. I'm not talking on behalf of Franz Bardon, but the visualization exercises for me seem like what they're getting at is you want to develop the ability to discern when it's the projection of your own mind and when it's actually a psychic message coming through. So if you can develop these visualizations in your visualization work, then okay, this is a projection of my own mind. And then you will know the difference between a true psychic message coming in, because otherwise you would be stumped up thinking I'm getting a psychic message when it's really just a projection of your own mind, which can happen. But that's the point of them, basically, in my opinion. That's what I see. Sure, they develop willpower too, but that's one part of the book that I always encourage students never to get stuck on. Don't get stuck on the visualization exercises by any means. Don't get stuck on those. That's just my opinion, because many people get stuck and they never move forward from them. And I just hate seeing that happen because, a good degree of self-awareness you'll actually be able to tell already what is your own mind and what is a true psychic message. So if you have a good level of self-awareness, you've already got really what they're getting at. That's my take on them. And I may be alone in Bardon teachers saying that, but that's my take.
Yeah, I personally, if I have the opportunity to overview the process that I'm about to engage in so that I can essentially attain a greater understanding of what I'm setting myself up for here, I will go through and study the form. I would like to become familiar with it so that I can intelligently sort of in a sense, make sense of, that there's some things that maybe you can't quite get because there are some prerequisite skills perhaps, to make for things to make sense. But I mean, yeah, and I think too that things started cracking open for me as well early on, even before Bardon. And so I'm not going to stop enjoying those things and doing those things and taking value from those things, because I kind of wonder about the way that the book was constructed, in a sense, because I think it was written the way it was to protect it somewhat as well. And it was at a different time, place, and location with a different cultural context. There was some other things going on in the background. And so I think it was almost like a protective mechanism, especially about the, don't move forward until you've done this and this and this and this. And so, I had had it wonderfully explained to me. It was actually on a Mark Rasmus video when he was saying, look, you can see how all these exercises have overlaps, or they all feed into each other. Focusing on visualization will help you with your will and concentration, and also working on your concentration will help you maintain the image that you're visualizing, and these types of things. So there's all this kind of, they're all essentially like, as he said, they're all points on a net, and if you lift up those points, they pull each other up. And I really like that explanation, and that makes more sense to me. And I kind of feel it's important that it makes sense to me as best as it can, because I know there's a lot of processes out there that are just like, yeah, just do this and she'll be right, or just trust the process. And I'm like, I have a different level of operation when it comes to that. But yeah, that was really great. Thank you for that. And there's a lot of opportunity for people to have these discoverable moments. Like you said, you open up these sense awareness faculties, new information starts coming in, and you've got to flesh it out, because some of it's just going to be unhelpful noise. People can dwell on that. And it's, we talk about this in dreams as well. Some dreams are more useful than others, perhaps, if you want to spend time working through them. Now, have you personally found value in dream work? I'd love to hear your thoughts, because it doesn't really get mentioned in the Bardon corpus, but dreams can tend to become, quite important to a lot of people.
Yeah. I don't focus on it now myself. I did in the past some keeping a dream journal, writing down your dreams when you wake up, and you end up kind of almost being able to do it better and better and remember your dreams better and better. And so sometimes people have almost prophetic dreams, or dreams that are really meaningful, but I don't really focus on it, to be honest.
Yeah. I found it was an interesting exploration, but it becomes tyrannical too, when you're sitting down writing 5 or 6 pages because you get so good at it. It sort of opens the floodgates, and it can become quite time consuming. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Right.
Now, I just want to say hello, everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. And we have Clint for about another 25, 26 minutes. So if you have a question for Clint, now's a great time. Please throw it in there. He's mentioned that he's keen to have some audience interaction here, and that's one of the benefits of the live scenario. So please enter your questions into the live chat. And what I'll do is that I'll just flick over there now, and we'll have a quick look. There's a lot of agreement with in here about people who are saying, yeah, they've tend to become more reserved with how they share information. And I think remember, people, these are your experiences. You don't feel obligated to tell people, even though you might feel like, oh, I really want to tell everyone this. Yeah, that's cool. Now, Clint, I haven't heard you talk about it so much, but I wanted to bring it up with you. And that is the topic of the other 2 practical books in the Bardon series, Evocation and the Kabbalah. And I'm just wondering, where are you at, if you don't mind, and you don't have to, with the other 2 books?
I think the other 2 books, I think the third book's more important than the second, actually. I think the Key to the True Kabbalah is more vital to this work than the practice of magical evocation. I think there's a lot of things in the practice of magical evocation where people could really scare themselves. Like they could end up scaring themselves in interacting with bad forces. And so you don't really want to enter into that until you're ready. As far as me, in my coaching, in my own experience, I'm kind of an initiation into Hermetics specialist. But all that said, I have great respect for everything Bardon did, everything he wrote. So, I'm really I'll just leave that to other people to discern what's right for them. But definitely, I would suggest finishing all 10 steps of initiation into Hermetics before going into the other books. That's what I think, because I think you can, after going through all 10 steps of IIH, you can achieve all the powers that you don't need to get an elemental or some other beings to help you do things. You can have all of the power yourself.
Yeah, I think there's some great value in what you've just shared there, is that, IIH is a pretty amazing journey in and of itself. Like, and then of course I'm the same, I've got a calling towards the second book, but I know that's later. I get a natural prompting in various forms to explore and practice the third book. And I've had conversations with Bob at 60 Skills about this. And one thing that he brings up, which I find quite curious, is that if you do the third book before the second book, when you get to the second book, because you have attained, the access to these 27 letters in the third book, you get treated with a higher level of respect from the spirits that you interact with. And for me, that I find that curious, because I have a natural drawing towards the third book as well, even just practicing the mother letters for the elements. And it's funny because I other people in the community are the same too. Like there's a short little acronym type thing, 132. That's becoming quite popular now. And I think because you've got guys like Bob and yourself being quite open and candid about sharing things, I think this is helpful because it's a wider range of information for people to explore. And I think too that most people that come to this work have already had a good look out there and haven't had a lot of success, or they've, and then this appears. I mean, it happened for me. It took me about 8 years of searching before I found Bardon, and I found it in a very curious way. And it's very satisfying. It's a full text, and like you said, it can be a bit dry and a bit austere, but it was written in a certain time in a certain place with a certain kind of style. But bottom line is that, like you said, once you get into vacancy of mind and pore breathing and the element work, it's quite interesting. And I think that when I look at some of the other teachers out there, especially say Mark Rasmus, who gets you straight into building the ball and pore breathing straight off the bat, that sets you up quite well. So, have you found any practices prior to your IIH journey, or during or after even, that you found to be highly complementary and helpful to, students or even your own practice?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I had a good head start going into Bardon. And I've been a mystic like ever since age 21. I'm 48 now, by the way, but ever since age 21, when I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening at age 21, that really came before I was ready for it. I needed time afterwards to integrate all of that into my system. And so I needed to do work in psychology, and even went into therapy with a psychologist that was very spiritual, a very spiritual minded psychologist that kind of helped me integrate the spiritual and the psychological so I could kind of calm down all the energies that had awakened in my Kundalini. And so, and so when that kind of period ended, after I got through that, I ended up going to a silent monastery at age 30 to live for 6 months with monks and nuns. And so living with those monks and nuns in a silent monastery and praying every day and doing Gregorian chant every day very much helped me. And so that was something that gave me a good head start, and I achieved vacancy of mind. So by the time I started Bardon, I'd probably say I started Bardon over 15 years ago at age 34. And so by the time I started Bardon, I could already discern the level of soul, spirit, and body. And I could feel the 3 different aspects in me already. I already had that before I even touched Bardon. So I had a huge head start, almost like it was unfair, So a lot of that in terms of practice meant prayer, silent meditation. What I found that was a breakthrough moment before Bardon was reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle really, really helped me. And that really took me to an advanced state. That was a pivotal point in my spiritual journey, reading The Power of Now. And so that very much helped me and turned things around. And so after that, the time I got to Bardon, everything Bardon said in his book made complete sense to me. I'm like, okay, yes, this is how it is. Like I knew, I was like, okay, because I could recognize it. I could almost recognize some of it in my own experience already. So I knew it was the real thing. So, like I said, I had a huge head start, but yeah, prayer, read The Power of Now, turn off that mind. There's an off switch to the mind. There actually is an off switch to the mind. You can turn your mind off, and it doesn't mean you won't have awareness. It doesn't mean if someone says something to you, you won't respond to them in the moment. It just means shutting off all the racing thoughts and the inner dialogue and shutting all of that off. So you're just in kind of pure awareness, but you'll still have what's some spiritual lineages call the working mind that will still be able to do tasks while the mind is off and just still think about the task at hand, but you're not dwelling on, oh, should I have done this? Should I have done that? What happened yesterday? Or you don't feel like shame or, fear about it. You just kind of think about only what's necessary. So there's an off switch to the mind. And if you can find it in yourself, it will greatly expedite your journey.
Oh, wonderful. Great share. Yeah, I think that's the thing is as soon as the mind starts racing and calculating and getting involved in lots of processes, it uses energy and spreads you out in a way where, it takes you away from the focus point of what you're trying to do. You're trying to do too much at once almost. I get that. I used to have a very busy mind. And the meditation and concentration. I have to say those first 3 exercises in the first step of Bardon's initiation to Hermetics, there's universal value in those. I think a lot of issues in society could be greatly remedied by even just sitting there and watching thoughts. Now I've got a question here in the chat, so let's bring it up. So Nostalgia asks, And we'll share what we're comfortable to share here. What was your experience with step 4 elemental equilibrium exercise, where you assign an element to each zone of the body?
Well, number one, I think elements are in every zone of the body. You can certainly move the elements and concentrate them in a specific part of the body, but I'm not exactly sure. What do you think? What do you think the question's referring to exactly, Phil?
Well, I mean, and obviously there's a part in the section, I believe it's step 4, where you partition off the head from the chest, from the gut to the lower parts, and you have, fire, air, water, and earth, and you stack or band the elements, and that creates that puts the electric elements above and the magnetic ones below, and then you sink into the depth point. But even prior to the depth point, you are stacking them to create equilibrium in the body. You know the exercise I'm talking about. And so he's saying, what was your experience? And so if I just give a quick nutshell of mine, I have to say, equilibrium feels like a beautiful cascading surge, and then everything's really beautiful afterwards. And then it's just a really great way to find a deep tranquility just as in a quick sort of nutshell. But are you able to sort of share anything you're comfortable sharing on what your experience was of
Yeah,
equilibrium?
yeah. Okay, that's what I thought the question was asking, and it's kind of like I don't really necessarily think it was necessary for me at the time. I mean, I preferred to spread all elements equally throughout my body and just get equilibrium that way. To have fire from the head to the toe, to have water from the head to the toe, air from the head to the toe, and earth from the head to the toe. That's really kind of what I did at that part. And for me, that gave me a great feeling, a feeling of just being completely charged. I also think there's a natural mechanism that will kick in.
Mm,
That something automatic can happen when you do it. That if you charge your system with each individual element, that and spread it equally throughout the body, the elements will naturally gravitate to where they need to go. I mean, it's
mm,
almost like the body and the elements have a natural intelligence to them. So the elements will go where they need to go, whether you try to make them go anywhere or not. So I would always just encourage students, just get the elements spread out through your body. And I don't know, maybe I sound like a heretic on that one, but that's what I did, and that's what I encourage students to do.
mm.
But yeah, it sounds like your experience was great though, Phil.
Yeah, well, I mean, I started having this curiously when I was getting into binaural beats, and at about the 20-minute mark, I'd get this. The whole body would just like I'd have this cascading or like surge, and it came on. Took a couple of years, and then I noticed I started getting it as well when I was doing the equilibrium exercises. And so I know there's more than one way up the mountain, and of course, even spread of the elements. You got it. That's a pretty core part of it, and I think, you know, yeah, I mean, I think everyone's going to have maybe a different sort of understanding of what happens. It could be quite subjective. I've actually been into the community early on and tried to get people to explain to me the experience of equilibrium from their standpoint, but I got a lot of really long, complex answers, and I'm sure it's not that long, complex, but I just get a deep sense of peacefulness and balance, really, and a good operational platform.
Yeah. And that's what I get. And I do find there are certain things like the right hand is definitely electrical for me. and the left hand is definitely magnetic. And the electrical is associated with fire, the water magnetic, the water negative, the electrical positive. I have found that to hold true throughout the whole Bardon process. So there's certain things, and but water, I mean, yes, you can place the elements in different parts, but I think I think it's good enough to just get them all charged up, each one at a time, spread equally throughout your body. I've always like, because and I've had a few clients that have had trouble with this because there's been a certain part of the body where they got too much of one element in, and it almost like became painful. So that's part of where I'm coming from here. I've heard stories of getting fire located in certain parts of the body that became painful. And so I always encourage spreading it out equally. Maybe it's a safety thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think too that, we're adapting to the presence of these tensions. Once we start practicing with them, we're introducing almost like it's not a new thing, but it's a new relationship to the thing. And, it's like, before we can lift 20 kilos, we have to lift 10. And so there are some mechanisms in there and indicators to let us know, oh, hang on, you're going too far here. And, and pain can be considered an indicator as well. Now I've got one more question for you, Clint, and then we better stitch it up because I know you've got to roll. Now this one is from Exercitiato Claritas. So that may be, I don't know, like exercise clarity. Hi, is there a criterion if an exercise has really been mastered, or a general minimum achievement clue for a certain skill at least? So it's a very broad question, but I'm presuming it's talking about proficiency markers or growth markers, so that, if you are especially going for the hardcore linear approach, how do you know when you've reached or attained some level of capability that you can be satisfied with, or that is notable, or, how do you know when you've crossed an ability threshold or something like this?
Yeah, I get asked this question all the time by people. I usually get asked it about a particular section, and I kind of just tell them my opinion of whether they should move on or not, whether they've done it or not. And so it depends on whatever skill or whatever exercise they're talking about. But I tend to be, again, a little loose on that. Like, I will set the standard probably lower than some Bardon teachers would. I mean, for instance, if you can, hold vacancy of mind for 5 minutes, that's outstanding. That's great. If you're trying to hold vacancy of mind for 30 minutes, that's going to take a long time to get to that point where you're able to do it. And that will also come in the rest of the steps. So one thing to consider is when you come to a certain step, I like the second sentence better in this question. Is there a achievement clue? Yes, there is kind of a clue, but most people have to ask me about it depending on what exercise it is. But you're going to be going forward in the steps and still working on previous steps. So you never really graduate the step. You go through it and you're still working some on the previous steps, is my take on it. For instance, like the soul mirror, it starts early in the book, but that's a lifetime process. The soul mirror is a lifetime process. It just begins in that part of the book, but I see that as a lifetime process. Keep doing it wherever you are in this stage. And so but don't let it keep you from moving on to the next step, that it has to be complete and thorough, and you have to have 500 things in the white column and 500 things in the black column. Just, make a start. So yeah, a lot of people ask me this about a lot of different things, and a lot of my regular clients who work with me and go through each step will always ask for feedback. This is what happened on this step when I was working on it, and they'll ask me, what should I do? Should I move on or keep working on it? And sometimes I'll say, you're making great progress. Keep going on that. Keep working on that. And sometimes I'll say, you're making great progress. Keep working on that, but do a little bit of the next step too while you're doing it. So yeah, there definitely is. And you can contact me about it too.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And speaking of which, I just want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys are always awesome, amazing, and very welcome. Thank you for all the great questions and everything. We're going to just seal this up now, and I want to give Clint's website and his service offerings a bit of a plug. So here's Clint's wonderful website where you can access him as a teacher, group sessions. You have there's courses on here. You'll be redirected to the Perseus Arcane Academy website. Clint has a book and, oh my gosh, and a blog. So Clint, would you like to just give us an overview of your service offerings, please?
Sure. So the online classes on Perseus, I have a free class actually on steps 1, 2, and 3 on Perseus Arcane Academy. And then I have a class that's on 4, 5, and 6 on Perseus Arcane Academy. And I believe that's fairly cheap class. And then I have a class on emotional release too. Maybe that's not on the website yet, but I have a class on emotional release using the Sedona method. And that really helps with getting in touch with the elements. And again, the group sessions are great. You get to meet other people working on Bardon stuff, and you get a transmission as well. And the individual sessions are great. You can move faster through the steps if you do an individual sessions with me. If you're coming to see me regularly, we're going to move through the steps. We're going to get this done, and we're going to enjoy it, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to talk about it. And I can answer all your questions as we go. So that's basically the overview I would give. And yeah, it's been an honor to be here, Phil.
Well, thank you so much, Clint. And yeah, great. There's a great nutshell of your services there too. And I think, of coaching and giving people confidence, saying, we'll get you through this, because people know that this is their path, but there are still maybe some limiting sort of beliefs, doubts, and these types of things. And the process, as you take them through, it helps to relieve those. So it's great. And I'm so pleased that you're able to make some time to come on the channel today and interact with the audience. And thank you so much. So just quickly, are there any final words that you'd like to share with the audience before we sign off?
Many blessings to you. You're all in my prayers, even if I don't know you, even if I don't come in contact with you. Watch my videos on YouTube, listen to my podcasts. They're completely free. And I send you love, and I send you much joy and many blessings in the days, weeks, and months to come. Stay safe. It's definitely a crazy time in the world we're living in. So stay safe. Value and take heart in the things that you like to do and the people that are important to you. And I wish you a whole lot of success in this path, whether you contact me or not.
Wonderful. Thank you. Beautiful message here. If I could get you to stick around for just 1 minute after I close the stream off. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all. I trust you've taken some value from this time with Clint. So please remember to see the description below for how you can connect with and find Clint. And I'll have a few links in there so you can see him. And of course, please remember to like, subscribe, and share if you feel the urge. That's very helpful for the channel. So I appreciate you all. And with all that said, everyone, have a beautiful weekend, and we will see you all again soon. Stay well.